Now let's talk about the schedule. So with this new Grace in Action, you concentrate on one section per night, and all of the kids go through that section for their evening. It's no longer a self-paced type of book that you would see in the traditional Awana. Of course, if a kid comes and he says, you know, I got half of my book done, I'm ready to recite all these verses, you're not going to turn them away. You let them say the verses, and they can still go to small group time for the rest of the year, and they can, you know, do the Bible study and do this discussion with the rest of the group. I wouldn't, if a kid came to me and said, I got all these verses memorized and I did the Bible studies and everything, I would say, okay, that's great, you can pass those sections. I'm not gonna, you know, not let you pass the sections, but you still need to go to small group time, because there's a lot that can be gained through group discussion of these topics, okay? But I and Together Removed didn't have any problems with that at all. And we have some high achievers in our club, and I think that once they realized this whole book is paced out for me and I can move along and I'll be finished by the end of the year as long as I follow this pace, I make up sections for a night that I'm sick, I'll be okay. Once they realize that, then I think they're okay with staying on track. There is, in the back, these silver and golds coordinate with every single lesson. So if you look in your book here to, this is for section 1.1, here's the silver and here's the gold, and it matches the teaching that is in the section 1.1 that they did all together. The kids can stay on track and do this with the unit or with the section when they're doing it up here, or they can whiz ahead if they want to. But if you look at this, this is 4 verses to memorize and an activity. I would think that this would keep your high achievers really satisfied, because if they have to memorize 5 verses a week, I would think that that's enough to feed their hunger, I would hope.
After they did the one section, would that be something that they might the next week go back and do one of those, 2 of those if they wanted to?
Yeah, they could. Yeah, they can fill in silver and golds at any time, you know.
Do you think that, do you have any kids that might do something like that?
I have maybe like 2 or 3 that would go back and make up stuff, but not very many.
I mean, do it the week that they just did that section.
Yeah, they would do this ahead of time. Like if you have a kid that's used to working on their Awana book at home, and they would come with this ready to go that week. Yeah, definitely. I think that could happen. Notice here that the silvers are all usually an activity or a Bible study, and the golds are always for memorization. So you might have some kids that say, I'm really bad at memorizing, but I can do a Bible study, or vice versa. Okay, and then they can achieve the extra credit in whatever way they want to. Okay. Also on the schedule, we said there's 32 weeks, including the start zone, which we covered in our game. And small group time can happen either before or after large group time. When I first looked at this curriculum, I'm like, oh, they have to go to large group time first, and then they'll discuss it in small group time. But then when I did a practice small group time, it really was like small group was a primer of the pump for what they were going to learn in large group time. So I think it could totally work either way. I think that they would flow whatever direction would work for the club, what they're used to, and what their room availability is. I think it could go either way as far as the night, game time, whenever they squeeze it in, okay? Any other questions about the schedule or about the silver and golds, moving through the book together? Does that make sense? All good? Okay. Next, let's talk about handbook time. So handbook time is now called small group time, but I'll use both terms, okay? You would know that in your club, depending on if students have their Bible study done ahead of time, if the majority come with their Bible study done, then handbook time is basically just a discussion. And in the leader guide, it gives some example questions for the discussion time right here. Some of these questions are fresh questions that aren't anywhere else, and some of the questions will be repeated in the Explore section, okay? So if you were a leader and you came to club and most of your kids have this done, I would touch on 2 or 3 of the more thought-provoking discussion questions, talk those over with the kid, and then let them pass their sections. However, if you come and everybody's page is blank, then you can go through this together as a group, and that's what it'll look like at our Awana Club. I expect to have 1 kid that comes with this done, so that's just how it goes. And the rest of the kids will walk them through it and teach them how to study God's Word. Look up a verse and see something and, think about it and learn. So that can be really powerful in handbook time. Like we said earlier, there are 4 elements required to pass a section. So you can see up here to complete it, there's start, hear, explore, memorize, and review. In the first section of each unit, so like 1.1, 2.1, 3.1, there is not a review verse. Okay, here's 2.1, you'll see that there's no review. There's only 3 elements. And as far as I can tell, that's consistent on all of the point 1, the first sections in the unit, and the reviews come later on. Does that make sense? Okay. Also in the books, you'll see that there is a bonus box. This is for parent participation. I think this is awesome, okay? So the bonus box is where it says, ask your parent, another caring adult, to write his or her favorite way to memorize something. Try this idea when you practice memorize Hebrews 1:3. So now they're asking their parent, hey, what's a good way to memorize something? And starting that discussion. Well, what are you trying to memorize? This verse, you want to memorize it with me? Let's try your method, okay? So it gets the parents involved. That's the only, I just opened that up randomly. That's the only question I've seen that actually involves the Bible. A lot of these ask someone to draw about something that he or she cares about. How does he or she know that these things are true? That person cares about them. Most of the time the questions are non-religious questions, so that if there is an unsaved parent, the question isn't threatening. It's not like ask your child or ask your parent this tough question about the Bible. It's not that. It's ask your parent about the topic at hand, and usually it coordinates with whatever the Start Here activity is for the kids. I think that the bonus box is just really, really phenomenal, and you know, we have a lot of kids that come and the parents aren't saved. And so if the kid would do the bonus box with the parents, there's an opportunity for the parents to get talking about what they're learning in Awana. And I think that's really important and really good. We will have a little bit more discussion about getting the parents involved later on. I have a whole slide about that. But that's briefly the bonus box. Questions there? Okay. Now let's talk about fast track. So fast track time is for kids who have their silver and gold completed. So it would be a time, a designated time when if they have their silver and gold completed, can get those sections passed with a leader. Also, if they missed class for any reason a previous week and they want to make up that section, they could do that during fast track time. I think it's just designed to keep the small group time really focused on the Bible study and not focused on everybody trying to pass their sections.
Whatever they need to.
Yeah. So with Together We Move, with my church, we just had like, you could come in the Awana office and say sections. We didn't have a ton of kids that participated in it, like 2 or 3. So they could say it to either the secretary or one of the directors that would be in the Awana office, and that worked for us. But I think with the fast track and it being a little more intentional, we're going to try a fast track room this year. So our Awana program starts at 6:45, but we feed the kids at 6:30 and they come early if they want food. So we're going to have fast track in between 6:30 and 6:45. We're going to just make one room. That's the fast track room. We'll ask 1 or 2 leaders if they'll be in that room. 2 because of child protection policy, 2 or 3, that's what I should say, depending on demand. And then those leaders can pass the kids on those sections. It's important that you have all the record sheets for all of the kids in the fast track room, and then you give them out to the leaders or in the room for handbook time, okay? Fast track could also happen during game time. If a church says, oh, we can't have kids come earlier before, it's got to be built into the 6:45 to 8:15 or whatever time they have Awana, then you could have fast track during game time. As a general rule, kids who are high achievers aren't the most athletic kids, okay? Have you seen that as a pattern? I was a high achiever and I'm not athletic, so it doesn't bother me if I miss one game because I was saying a verse. Like, that's okay with me. And that's not always the case. I mean, you have athletic kids that are also really into memorizing God's words, but the fast track is supposed to be fast. They're not going to spend the whole 25 minutes in there. They're going to get in there, say their section, and get out. They're going to get in there, say, look, I got my Bible study done, sign off, sign the record sheet, and get back to game time. So fast track could happen during game time as well. One thing to consider, if you do have it during game time, make sure that the room is close by enough to the gym that you don't have kids really wandering a long way to get to fast track and getting out of your view. Have it close by so that kids can, not get away from you. You can be aware of where they're at. That's all I got for fast track. Any questions about that? So now we'll talk about handbook groups. So we have children that are divided by grade currently in our Awana club. All the third graders in one group, all the fourth, fifth, and sixth together, and our groups are co-ed. We did that because we only have so many rooms for the kids. We didn't have 8 rooms. We only have 4 that are available for handbook time. And you might run into a church that has that same scenario where they just don't have an abundance of small rooms. So we have the groups co-ed. I do think that this year, depending on what the attendance will be, we'll try to split them. Again, especially maybe even at like the 5th and 6th grade level, I think that's probably a little more important than 3rd or 4th grade. I think if we can split them, that'd be really good to have separate genders, but we have done co-ed, and co-ed does work. Okay. I let the leaders coordinate on their own who's going to teach each night. So I taught my leaders how to teach a memory verse and do small group time before everything was laid out in the book. I taught them how to come up with all this on their own. And so I let them decide on their own who was going to teach the verse. Some of the